the webinars live. He would be the right person to guide our present students and also guide the prospective students who are interested in pursuing a career in automobile engineering. I heartily welcome you, sir, on this occasion, and I'm sure that our students and faculty members would benefit a lot from your session, whatever you guide them. And ours is a skill university, as you know, sir. So, from that perspective, since you are from the Skill Development Council, from that perspective also, you could give mm, the students guideline as to how they should utilize their time in the university, how they could develop these skills so that they are employable from day one. And of course, for the benefit of the prospective students and the parents who have joined this webinar, I would also want to say that, ours is a skills university. We have focus on every course by the way of 70% by way of practicals and 30% on theory component. And we have various courses. To start from engineering, we have BTech in automobile engineering, we have in mechatronics, and we have in computer science with specialization in cyber security. So these are the BTech programs we have. BBA programs we have in retail management and e-commerce management, supply chain management, ports and terminals, and digital media management. And we also have a school of architecture. We have a school of data science and computer science, where we have a program of BSc in data science and a PG in diploma in data science, which is a weekend program. That is for the people who are employed and who would like to enhance their qualification by way of PG diploma. We also have a beauty and wellness school, where we have a BSc Beauty and Wellness program and a PG Dietetics program. And this year we have launched a MSc in Nutritional Sciences. We are also very happy to say that we have launched two MTech programs this year. One MTech in Automotive Engineering and the second one in Mechatronics and IoT. So this is about our different courses that we have under Symbiosis Skills University. And you are all parents and prospective students are most welcome to have a look at our website www.sspu.ac.in. Just to share our laurels that our students have brought. One group of our students recently won the first prize in the Smart India Hackathon in the software edition. So they were given a real-time problem and they developed a mobile app to sense the fuel in a vehicle, and then get the location of the nearby fuel stations. So they got the first prize, which was a certification and cash prize of 1 lakh rupees. Similarly, I'm also proud to share here that our university has been ranked amongst the first 50 under private universities for the Atal Institution Innovation Excellence in that category. So with all this, I once again welcome Mr. Arindam Lahiri on this live webinar on behalf of the university. And since we are in this online mode nowadays because of the COVID situation, otherwise, sir, we would like to have you at our campus once things come back to normal. So over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I now call upon our director, Dr. Charudatta Pathak, to share a few words.
Thank you, Shweta. It gives me a great pleasure to have Mr. Arindam Lahiri, who is a CEO of ASDC, Government of India, and we are like converging on the same path. And with his guidance, our students will definitely get benefits, and we will be able to fulfill the Skill India mission put by our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji. So this is from my side, Lahiri sir, and I will request you to kindly guide our faculty and students about future skills requirement, because I feel no one other than you can tell this authentically. What is the requirement? What will be the future skills set required by industry from an automobile engineer? So I again heartily welcome, sir, and I request you to kindly guide us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, without wasting a single moment, I call upon our guest, Arindam Leri sir, to please start the discussion.
Please unmute.
Yes, ma'am, I'm doing.
He's still not unmuted.
Yeah, hi. Uh,
Now, yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would also need a right to share my screen and have a short presentation. So you can do that. But in the meantime, let me thank Vice Chancellor Dr. Puri for her kind words. And it's always been a privilege to be in the campus. I was in the campus, I think, uh, end of last year, maybe. And sorry, February maybe this year, or November. I just get mixed up now that I've been not traveling for the last 6 months. But yes, I think there's a fantastic infrastructure at the university, and the focus on skills is what is very important. And during during the course of our chat today, I will also I think I will want to give you very concrete reasons as to why skills is so very important than just having a knowledge or a degree in something as compared to what was happening earlier. Especially nowadays, it was more important to have a degree uh, rather than the skills. But I'm glad that things have changed drastically, because we eventually landed up into jobs where we had to learn all the skills again. And here you are, that you are getting an opportunity to actually learn the skills while you are in college, and therefore much more industry ready in terms of where you can start your career. So you get a head start in your career, and kind of grow in your career. uh, so today, I would want to give you a very quick overview of what we are looking at in terms of the automotive industry, and what are some of the changes that we are seeing. And therefore, you might be able to plan better in terms of what is it that interests you, and what is it that you would want to take up as you go forward, while you're doing your graduation or you're doing your post graduation. But before I get into the very specifics in the automotive sector, let me just take you to some, very critical view about the future in the next maybe 20, 30 years. And, some of the things that I have mentioned on the slide here may look very, very futuristic or science fiction types. But let me tell you, I graduated towards the end of the 80s. And uh, while we were in school, high school, we used to go through a TV series called Star Trek. And, we used to see a lot of people talking on phones while they're walking. And we used to feel that this is something which is again uh, part of the science fiction that it was meant to be. And then in 1997 and 1995, I think when mobile phones were introduced in India, and I started using them in 1997. There I was in 1997, less than 2 decades later. I was actually using one of those devices, and which was a reality. So delivery drones is becoming important. I think one of the first use case applications that I'm seeing very heavily is that it is being used for marriage photography. In terms of drones taking the place of the photographer, or a help to the photographer and taking an aerial view. I think which is a fantastic experience in itself. Uh, Virtual reality is becoming more of a reality. We are today developing some of our course content, etc., in virtual reality domain. And through the use of virtual reality technology, how could we create certain simulation experiences for our students is something that we are looking at. Robots are going to come in very widely. Let me tell you personally, I've started using a home robo in terms of cleaning my house. And that is something which is one of the earliest applications that one is looking at. And there are a lot more applications which are on the anvil and which will probably become much more popular in terms of getting it done. Um and many of these in terms of renewable energy. Today morning I was part of a inter-university event for electrical solar electrical vehicles, championship, where students have created working models and would want to demonstrate how they were performed. So these are, use of convergence of sustainable energy and renewable energy is there. So what is India looking like, and not that far in future, but in the next few years? By 2023, India will have about 119 million 18 to 22-year-olds, and many of you are part of that. Okay. Or most of you will be part of that. Therefore, I think India's educational institutes will face a lot of challenges to meet the demand, and therefore the need for a lot of digital education, uh, self-skilling, etc., which will happen. And this slide was prepared much before COVID. So one of the things was online learning will move from marginal activity into the mainstream. And when I used to talk about this in the pre-COVID days last year, a lot of people used to look at it with a lot of, you know, I would say, not very sure as to why am I saying this. But today, I think the same set of people will definitely agree with me. Role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in terms of recommendations, helping the tutor to make the right choices of the content, etc. A lot of it is now being experimented with fairly a large number of startups. If you know about a startup called Imbibe, which was recently or maybe a few months back, uh, acquired by Reliance Jio, is exactly into that kind of a format where they're doing AI recommended content for learning as a learning tool. Degrees will become less important. That's what I said, that don't get bugged about whether you get a BVOC or BBA or BSc or BTech or whatever it is. At the end of the day, the employers will focus on whether you know something that you can do or not, and that is what is going to become important. 37% of the workforce will be deployed in jobs with new skills by 2023. Okay. which is new skills as per today's standard. And this was done with a 5-year period. By around end 2018 is when this was kind of projected. We already see a lot of it actually happening on ground 2 years down the line, approximately 2 years down the line. Self-skilling, self-learning, we've been talking about, that there is a lifelong learning and you need to learn for the rest of your life, etc. But I think lifelong skilling is going to play a big role. And also skill certification based on competencies will determine employability. You already see that in the IT sector. So whenever new technologies come up, so a new language, Python, has come up, or a new database structure, MongoDB, has come up, and you need to have a certification in that to be able to get to a job which uses that. Same will happen with the automobile industry and any other industry. So what are some of the generic uh, digital skills or technology skills as we talk about? I would like to see them from three perspectives. One is that there are certain skills that you will now require because work from home is a reality now, and that's going to stay. Okay. What are the definite skills required to manage data privacy and data security? Some things that we don't focus a lot in terms of our day-to-day life, but yes, it is required. And finally, skills required for digital collaboration. Now, digital collaboration is required because the physical workspace will become now digital workspace. So you will need to look at digital collaboration. Uh, as far as skills required to work from home, you need to understand the various technology tools that are available, time management and device management. Many of us, when we started our work life, uh, getting a laptop or later on getting a cell phone device from the company was considered to be an important perk. Now, cell phone device nobody gives as a company today. Okay, and I think slowly this whole concept of laptop or tabs being provided for by the company is also going to go away. At least at the entry level jobs, it's already going away. And you need to have your own device, and therefore you need to be responsible for maintaining your own device so that you remain connected. So you need to know how to do it at least at the basic level. Similarly, about your managing your data and your security, because you will be logging into various uh, networks, and how do you ensure that your email doesn't get hacked, your online bank accounts don't get hacked, because there is no escaping. A lot of people used to say that, oh, I will not use it because it's not very secure. Now you don't have that as an option. You will have to use it. And if you have to use it, you'll need to know how to be secure. So that's something which you'll have to do. And then digital collaboration. How do you do online learning? How do you do digital literacy courses? How do you practice a lot of things using YouTube videos? And how do you meet the enhanced communication needs when you are working from home and you are not meeting with people physically that often? So how do you make sure that you are actually collaborating through digital media? Uh, and a lot of examples of digital collaboration or digital uh, trending is actually what is making things work on the ground in many cases. Okay. There was this very interesting study that was released by FICCI in the month of, I think, July or August, where they looked at these three boxes: what's happening on work, what is happening on workforce, and what is happening at workplace. So the work itself is undergoing a huge amount of change. There is automation, there is cognitive technology investments, which is basically nothing but AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, which have been there in the focus. Uh, Now, a lot of that is getting a lot of focus. Workforce, it's not the traditional that I will get into a job and I'll stick with it for some time, then keep changing to another job and so on and so forth. There is this concept of a gig economy or a freelancer economy. In fact, a lot of people think this is a disadvantage. I would say this is a huge advantage. Yesterday, you could not have thought of working in a country called Lithuania, for instance, because you would think that it's such a faraway place, and I don't even know how the people are like. It's too many unknown. But today, you could work for a Lithuanian company or an Estonian company digitally, remotely, and the whole world suddenly becomes your workplace that way. You know? And which is where the idea of a hybrid workplace, a mix of physical and remote, which means that if you are in a organization which is not in the same location as where you are, you might work remotely for most part of your uh, work duration, but at times you might go and do some physical interaction as well. And this is what the blended workplace model is going to look like. We've been talking about blended learning, blended skilling. I think we're talking about blended working models, workplace models as well. And this is something which requires, more than anything else, a change in mindset. So your parents may not be able to reconcile to this, but you need to be able to, uh, adopt this very easily and be ready as to how this will work, because your seniors or your uh, parents will probably not be able to guide you as to how do you work on a remote as a remote worker, because you need to have a lot of responsibility in terms of making sure that you deliver and you deliver well on time. So let me now come to auto industry. So the picture on your left is the traditional how an automotive assembly line looks like, and this is something which is one of the more recent automotive assembly lines. So you won't see uh, people on the line here. You would only see people outside, uh, and they're just doing the controls, etc. And the physical work is being done by the robots. And this is reality. This is from an actual factory. So and some of them are like this in India itself. If you go to a Toyota assembly line or an MG Motors assembly line or a Kia assembly line, a lot of it is like this. So is there some advantage to India when it comes to automobile industry? And there are loads of advantages. If I look at demand, the young population will result in a strong growth. So if you have followed the numbers of the auto industry over the last few months, you would know that April, May were like complete washouts, and auto industry even before COVID as well was not doing great in terms of the business. There was some amount of degrowth and market correction that was happening. Now, that was more to do with how the internal workings of the industry is rather than actual sales going down. But uh, I don't want to get into that discussion right now. There is a very strong growth, and if you see now in September, it's almost caught up with the September numbers of last year, and such a quick recovery. This is being considered as a very positive sign, and it's just because that there is a young population, especially if you look at segments like entry level cars, two wheelers, the growth is tremendous. There's been a very high growth in the tractor segment, for instance. It is also becoming increasingly an export hub. So, a Ford or a Fiat, who are not very active players in the local market, still have manufacturing bases here in India because they export a lot of their vehicles. Similarly, Bharat Benz is looking at making India the export hub for their Asian markets. And a lot of that is happening. Opportunities, I think focus is shifting on reducing emissions to electric cars to stricter emission norms, which means BS6 has already been brought in. A government is also pushing very hard, under the whole Atmanirbhar Bharat uh, theme, in terms of making India a R&D hub. And India could be a leader in, shared mobility through electric autonomous vehicles going forward. One of the first autonomous vehicles in India has been launched only this week by MG Motors, and I'm pretty sure in the next decade or so, the whole scenario will change drastically. There's a lot of policy support. GST has made a lot of important a lot of important reforms have happened. Incubation centers to promote startups in the EV space, in the automobile technology space, I think is huge. And there's a whole lot of investments that is happening in India. India still has a lot of cost advantages vis-a-vis operations in Europe and Latin America. Uh, of course, the key competition is with China as a market. But if India continues to remain focused on making India for the world, and that is something which I think the automobile industry is in the right sense. And therefore, I think for those of you who would be entering this industry at this juncture, you will be riding a wave of growth, tremendous growth in this industry, and therefore you would be able to grow personally as well. So this is something like what happened in telecom, for instance, in the year 2000, 2001 onwards till about 2010, 11, 12, where there was this very high growth of telecom services, not so much telecom manufacturing, but here it will be automobile manufacturing, R&D, and of course the sales and service at the dealership level. Uh, the automobile industry is actually a very large employer. Almost about 32 million people are employed. This is about 2018 data. So, and if you look at the manufacturing, 2.1 million raw material providers, which is essentially some of the component manufacturers, 2.06. This includes some of this here also, manufacturing. And then if you look at service maintenance, which requires technical manpower, which most of you are aiming to be, again about 5 million people already employed, and this is only going to increase. It is projected to increase to about 65 million people uh, by the year 2025-26. And as per automotive mission plan, as per our estimates, this number will at least go to about 50 to 53 million by 2025-26. What are some of the major shifts that the automotive organizations are facing? One is, of course, traditional manufacturing is going away. It is becoming a lot more electronics in the car, a lot more softwares, a lot more IoT devices, sensors, which are all becoming part of this. We are also seeing shorter life cycle of models. So life cycles, shorter cycles of innovation, development, and production. So while earlier probably a new model used to take at least 3 years or so. Now we are looking at newer cycles which are between 12 to 18 months of development and testing and so on. The service and the support ecosystem has developed a lot. A lot of digital application is becoming the new normal. There are new jobs, associated skills that are there as per that. And then there is requirements of new skills and capabilities which are there, which I'm going to talk about in the subsequent slides. Because what is being talked about in 5, 6, and 7 is essentially what I'm going to focus a lot more in the subsequent slides. Now, if I look at specifically, the manufacturing, what are the major shifts that are happening in manufacturing? Uh, there are 4 major shifts that are happening in manufacturing. One is that you have to be more agile and you have to be more customer centric. Supply chain resilience. When COVID happened and a lot of international movement was stopped, that the fact that everybody talked about was, can you have uh, self-reliance on your supply chain and much better control on your supply chain, and therefore can you have newer models of doing that, which is where disruption in global manufacturing and supply chains are challenging manufacturers to have multiple sources. If you look at the speed and the productivity, I was already talking about shorter innovation cycles. So remote management and digital collaboration. And this chart is from a World Economic Forum report that has just been published in September 2020. And that's something which is very, very important for us to understand what is happening here. And then there is a global concern about environmental impact. So a lot of focus on economic efficiency that we are looking at. So these are 4 key tenets of the shifts in manufacturing. Now, somebody called Rick Pathak is making some drawing on the screen. So let me reshare this. Okay. So if I look at, what are the current gaps? What are areas that you can actually start picking up while you are in college? Uh, Important for you to understand that you need to have some of the more softer skills or employability skills that we are talking about. So essential industry knowledge and technical knowledge pertaining to vehicles, overall vehicles, is what is very important. And then we are talking about interpersonal skills, negotiation skills, multitasking skills. So work on teams, work with your friends, people who are friends, people who are not friends. And you will have to work in environments similar to that in your real life as well. Maintaining customer service levels and customer satisfaction levels. Now imagine you are working as a service advisor with a large automobile service workshop, and the customer walks in with a particular technical problem that the car is giving. Now, it is not good enough for you to have the technical knowledge only, that you need to be able to get that solved through your technician, but you must also be able to handle the customer, because the customer might be very angry, and he might be very difficult, he or she might be very difficult to handle. So you need to have that kind of a customer satisfaction levels must be maintained, and you must have knowledge for customer service delivery cycle, the process of that, how the whole thing. Now, coming to some of the technical skills that I'm looking at, looking at software for design, CATIA, or whatever softwares you can look at, MATLABs, simulation, modeling. How can you have some skills around that if some of you are interested? Looking at computerized numerical control machines, CNC machines, or robotic machines. How do you handle robotic welding machines? How do you handle robotic presses? All of that. Um Supply chain skill set. A lot of you can work in the entire management of the supply chain, and that's something which I started my career with in Maruti. And looking at how to make the whole supply chain process the supply chain process efficient and effective at the same time. And some of you could also be looking at careers in maintenance. So, how do you improve production operations through TPM? And now we are talking about predictive maintenance and predictive maintenance of machines, remote maintenance of machines. These are definitely an integral part of smart manufacturing processes. So, this is something which is also very important for you to look at. At the component supplier level, which is what we call as tier one, tier two, tier three suppliers, we have skill gaps in terms of people not able to understand engineering drawings, system designs, and also there is inadequate training facility at the auto component manufacturers because these may not necessarily be very large organizations. So the more trained you are yourself and you can invest in your self training, the better are your chances of progressing in a career in that facility. If you're looking at, what are the key disruptive trends in the automobile industry, there are certain manufacturing trends that I've been talking about in terms of additive manufacturing, industrial robotics, industrial Internet of Things, IIoTs, and manufacturing expert systems, the next generation of it, where you can do remote manufacturing, which is what we call as smart manufacturing. There are government interventions, regulations like BS6, mandatory safety regulations, etc. So these are definitely impacting the kind of job roles that you have. And lastly, also the changing preference, the market demand. So while there was a surge in terms of, let's say, SUVs in the Indian market over the last couple of years, there is a resurgence of entry-level vehicle models that one is looking at in the post-COVID era, at least in the near future. That is something what people are looking at. People are looking at two-wheelers. People are looking at personal mobility rather than shared mobility. However, people are looking at electric vehicles. People are looking at connected vehicles, and these are definite interests in the customer's mind. Um, some of the other manufacturing trends, if I were to look at, I did already touch upon it a little. 3D printing or additive manufacturing is definitely progressing very rapidly. And this is something, where we are looking at a lot of production eventually moving into an additive manufacturing environment where there will be production lines of 3D printers. Initially there's been lot more focus on doing design prototypes, etc., in additive manufacturing. But now the focus is getting closer to actual production line solutions. Um, Automation, a lot of automation solutions is what we are looking at. Including industrial IoTs, usage of industrial IoTs to be integrated with plant management, and especially things like safety, for instance, in a manufacturing plant. This is where a lot of the Japanese word pokayoki, which is idiot proofing, is actually done. and with lesser number of people working in a per square meter space, because you want to follow a social distancing norm, there will be more machines to support you than human beings going forward. So how do you ensure that you keep working with machines, and you are used to it? Actually, you have to get used to it. Growing adoption of industrial robots. So robotics is here to stay. Industrial robotics has already developed a lot and is going to develop significantly. So we are also talking about cobots, which means that robots which will interact with human beings and will work. So instead of giving an order to another human being as a supervisor, many of you may need to give an order to a robot to execute a certain order. And some of these is very, very, very critical for your work life for future. So some of the new job roles talks about electromechanical technicians, electronics technicians, network and computer system applicators, which were more considered to be IT hardware. But that IT hardware piece is now getting into the vehicles, because vehicles are becoming connected devices, and devices connected to central servers, vehicle to vehicle communication, vehicle to infrastructure communication, and a lot of this. And there will be operators required to manage robots and programming as we go forward. And therefore, people with the interest in that area can also find a lot of employment opportunities in that area. So these are some of the top 5 skill sets that one would need to look at in manufacturing: managing welding robots, or any kind of robots for that matter; working with high voltage technology, because high voltage technology earlier was limited to power transmission, power generation and power transmission domain. But now, even in automotive, because you will have high voltage chargers for electric vehicles, you will need to be able to know how to work with it. Ability to read and operate through a manual. You may not have physical human beings guiding you, hand holding you, helping you. So you'll have to learn it yourself. So we were setting up a particular center of excellence in one of the universities here in the Delhi NCR, and some of the machines were imported machineries, where typically the manufacturer would send somebody to come and do the installation and commissioning. But since there has been a travel restriction due to COVID, uh, these guys wanted to still have the machine installed and commissioned, and they were done remotely, and they themselves did it, with uh, online support, as well as going through the manuals, etc. So some of this will become normal. As of now, it looks like fairly one-off, abnormal situation, but this will become way of life as we go forward. Some of the current people who are working in manufacturing areas in different shop areas like press shops, welding shops, painting shop, assembly shop, machining shop, uh, maintenance shops, all of these areas would need a lot of upskilling, which they will have to do. Otherwise, they will become redundant for the industry. COVID has already taken away jobs for a lot of people, because some of the low end jobs will not. And I think the other day, I was in one of the conferences where somebody was saying this very interesting thing, and I quite agree with the person in terms of the research that they had done, that it's the middle level jobs that, medium skill jobs that will go away. Very, very low skill job will remain, because putting machines instead of that may cost more money. So they will remain. Very high end jobs, high skill jobs, they will remain with humans, because to make a machine to address that level of complexity will become exceptionally economically unviable. But it's the middle one, which is where probably it will be cheaper to get a machine to do the job than a human being. And it's not as complex also. And machines can be built very easily. and maintained very easily. Those are the jobs that will go away. So there is no space for mediocrity. And therefore, some of you who are trained, skilled, educated, you'll need to aim for little high skill jobs, high end jobs where you can manage machines very well. One example of additive manufacturing, I've already spoken a lot about it, but I just want to give you some example also that use of 3D printers for functional prototypes has been there for quite some time. Utilization in design and testing has been there. But now we are looking at rapid manufacturing as well as for tool design, making tools actually. So if you have to shorten the cycle of development, one of the bottlenecks is usually when you do tooling, like let's say a press die that you do and stuff like that. Now, if those things can be done in a 3D printed machine, um, the cycle time required to get that kind of a die will crash significantly, and therefore the product can be brought to market very easily, and those kind of stuff can be done. Also, one of the biggest advantages of additive manufacturing, actually two. One is lightweighting of the product. So the product on the picture is a brake caliper. Now, brake calipers are very heavy. I don't know if some of you have seen it. The front tires will definitely have a caliper. In some models, you will have all four wheels, not tires, the wheels. All four wheels will have the brake caliper brakes instead of the drum brakes. Now, if you look at that, this machined aluminium, because aluminium was considered to be lightweighting. Why do you want to lightweight? Is because you want to reduce your fuel consumption, and therefore you're looking at lightweighting it, and 3D printing can do that, and do that very well in terms of machine making that choice as to where the holes will be without compromising on the strength of the part. That is number one. Number two, uh, a lot of assembly goes away because the smaller parts, which would otherwise be very difficult to fit in, you made it in separate parts, multiple parts, and you would need a manual process to sub-assemble all of this. Now you don't need to do that. You can build it as a single part and just use it. So some of these are huge advantages of additive manufacturing. Finally, I just want to touch upon a little bit on the servicing side. There are roadside garages which would do largely very low-end jobs. But today, an authorized service center will largely do electronics, diagnostics, mechanical repair, etc. So a lot of these happens because uh, the specialized work will have to be done by uh, the authorized service station because of a lot more onboard electronics, vehicle electrification, and mechatronics in the vehicle. So you will need diagnostic softwares and diagnostic tools to be able to find out what the fault is. And you would also want to do predictive analytics because you will be able to track when something has been serviced. And if you have a connected vehicle, the vehicle is also tracked for its usage. So a lot of that area, areas like battery technician because of electric vehicles, electric vehicle technician, where we are talking about a lot of telematics, etc., and a lot of analysis job that can be done by the service technician as well. And then there is a predictive analysis in terms of vehicle condition, service requirement, etc. So these are some of the key skills that are required. So a lot of integration, you can see that the automobile today is not a mechanical device alone. It's a mechanical device with electricals in it, with electronics in it, and with computer systems in it. So it's a very, very, very integrated device. And therefore, if you want to work in this segment, you also need to have a fairly good understanding of one specific domain, which is a deep understanding, but you need to have an overall understanding of the other areas as well. Finally, let me end by saying, that the capacity to learn is a gift, which you kind of get naturally. The ability to learn is a skill, and the willingness to learn is a choice. It is important for you to learn the skills that are relevant today, but most important than that is a willingness to learn, because 10 years down the line, what you will need to learn is not known to us. But there will be something new to learn, and you need to have a willingness to learn that as well. So at that time, you can't say that, oh, I didn't learn it at Symbiosis, just like I can't say today that they didn't teach me how to make PowerPoint presentations while I was at IIM. You guys might be amazed, but the fact is that Microsoft PowerPoint as a software did not exist at that point in time. But I can't live without it in today's context. So just a small example, but I think that's very relevant. So that's all that I had, and I'll be very happy to take some of the questions that you may have. I don't know if you can put it in the chat, or will you be allowed to
Yes,
speak?
sir. Um, I have enabled the chat for the question and answer round. So, all the participants, the platform is now open for a question and answer round or any queries if you have. But before that, sir, it was really inspirational and motivational lecture for all the faculties, parents, and students. It is very apt to the current situation from the job point of view. So, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So, sir, I could see first question here. It is like how Industry 4.0 will affect the automotive sector.
So I think Industry 4.0 is already affecting the automotive sector. So as I said, there is a lot of automation that is already happening, and use of industrial IoTs and sensor-based manufacturing processes, which are basically talked about as smart factories or smart manufacturing. That is already happening in a lot of the OEMs, which is the vehicle manufacturers, and also the larger component manufacturers as well. Slowly, it will percolate into the next tier of manufacturers of components as well. So it's here to stay. I mean, the cyber physical interaction is here to stay, and uh, we get kind of very fascinated by Industry 4.0. But I am reminded of my college days when uh, computerization of processes used to evoke the same kind of emotions. That how will computerization change the work? And today we don't even talk about it because it's a way of life. And I think Industry 4.0 will maybe in less than a decade will become a way of life in the manufacturing world.
Okay. Now, so someone is asking, what is the scope of machine learning in automotive industries?
Yeah, fantastic. I think machine learning is something which is absolutely widespread application, and automotive industry has very, very strong applications of that. One of the areas is, of course, I'll start with is in terms of the whole manufacturing process itself. Machine learning is important because you know the simplest of the processes, we can place robots, learning, are they picking the right components, the image processing of that, image matching, all of that happens there. And then if there is certain changes in the process, then the machine has to be made to learn that change in the process, and that is already there. So to an extent, I would say a very simplified version of machine learning existed even before the term machine learning came in, to that extent. We were probably calling it programming at that point in time in a very rudimentary way. Now, second, in terms of machine learning, is in terms of a lot of analysis that is to be done in terms of machine maintenance. So, machine downtime in product it hampers productivity and production efficiencies, and there is a very strong application of machine learning in that. Uh, And then finally, the vehicle itself, there is a machine learning part of it. When we are talking about an autonomous vehicle, there are applications of machine learning into how a vehicle will park itself. So we are already seeing, without getting into fully autonomous vehicle, we are already seeing, uh, parking assist. We are already seeing lane assist, brake assist. These assets are nothing but uh, 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 applications of machine learning into and different stages of an autonomous vehicle. So we see a very widespread application of machine
Uh, so, any guidance for designing or core jobs
learning.
from designing point of view or core
Yeah,
jobs?
so in fact, that's a very good question because, I'll tell you, when we were making IC engine based vehicles, a lot more focus was on manufacturing because manufacturing was more complicated than design. Okay. If you design a basic 1.5-liter engine or a 2-liter engine, you can fit into various vehicles, but then you want all the other parts to kind of come and fit it into a system which gives you a new model. But the important part was how would you manufacture, because your engine itself have so many different parts. Now with electric vehicles and battery electric vehicles, uh, there are two large components which make up all the cost, which is your battery and your motor. Uh, Now, but choosing the same battery and the motor, uh, it is important to understand the vehicle systems engineering, and therefore design plays a very important part. So in fact, one of the first programs that we launched at ASDC has been electric vehicle systems engineering program, where you basically get into modeling and simulation to understand the design of an electric vehicle to achieve certain output parameters. So therefore, I think design of vehicle is very, very, very critical. Vehicle dynamics plays a very important role today. So how do you understand vehicle dynamics? Weight distribution in vehicle, the whole battery pack. How do you put it? Where do you put it? How do you distribute the weight? How does it have an impact on on, let's say, the tire life, uh, you know based on the distribution of the weights? So a lot of these applications, are design applications, and I think there's a huge you will probably see a lot more focus on design professionals as we go forward in automotive industry.
Sir, it seems that our students wants to be entrepreneurs, so they are asking how to become a job provider in future in automotive industry. Like, what should be done for this?
Yeah, so I think the good part about the disruption that has happened is that there's a huge amount of opportunities and models that have opened up, which was unthinkable in automotive industry. So, firstly, you couldn't even become a manufacturer. Uh, you could only end up manufacturing a small part or an accessory if you want to start becoming a manufacturer. But today, you can actually produce a vehicle. So if you look at our electric two-wheeler, three-wheeler, you have a whole host of new players who have come into this market, startups. Okay. Similarly, in component side, because the traditional machining, welding, casting, forging is giving way to a lot of electronics, coding, uh, sensors, etc. So how what solutions are you providing, what problems are you solving? So important for you to become an entrepreneur is to identify the kind of problem that you want to solve and look at a solution for that. And then I think the whole auto industry can be your work field. That is on one side. The other side is Very simple thing in terms of aggregation models. There is service aggregation models like a Go Mechanic and stuff like that, which were not there. Nobody used to think about uh, independent garages, etc. But now there is a whole requirement around. And not only here in India, but I think in abroad, one of the things that I missed talking about is that we're already working with multiple countries, developed nations, where there is an acute shortage of skilled manpower. And automobile is one of the areas where there is a huge shortage of manpower across countries like Middle East, Australia, Japan, Germany, US, and they're looking at India to provide some of those manpower for their own markets and own solutions. So some of you who might have global aspirations, being in global markets, um, it's a wonderful opportunity that's opening up for you. Just be ready that you have the right skills to go there. Essentially.
So, where we see electric vehicles in next 20 years? How is the development going to be? That is what they are worried about, I suppose.
So, very 20 years definitely is a long period of time. I definitely see that at least the two-wheeler, three-wheeler market and public transport, which is buses, probably will undergo huge change in terms of electrifications, if not passenger cars, uh, or trucks like carrying heavy weights. But even there, probably some amount of electrification will happen. I'm not If you look at a 20-year horizon, I would say that uh, I am looking at where will mobility move to. You know, will it move to autonomous electrical drones driven by solar powers, which will become the norm? So you will, Dubai is already experimenting with autonomous flying taxis from the city to the airport. You know. Uh, Sounds very futuristic in today's context. But if you look at 20 years, I wouldn't be very surprised if that becomes the norm and that becomes the way cars are conceived of, probably. So I don't know. Maybe you can stand on uh, on this. What do you call that? Uh, kind of a skateboard, electrified skateboard, and you could actually be flying at low heights and moving from one place to another. That could probably be the way the things could work.
Just like sci-fi movies, sir.
Yeah, so those movies actually show us the future.
Yeah, that's true. Um, Sir, which is supposed to be the most focused area, like supply chain or manufacturing process or designing?
I think all areas are very important and all areas have tremendous potential and opportunities. I think, as an individual, you need to find out what makes you more excited because the area or the function in which you find more interest, you are likely to become more successful in that area. So whether you want to go into pure technical roles, pure manufacturing, or you want to be in R&D, or you want to be in service, or you want to be in a techno-commercial role. It entirely depends on you as an individual, as your interest, and therefore your passion to be in one of those areas. So I would constantly tell you that no area is like very hot and happening. Every area is hot and happening. And but will it work for you? That will depend on where your interests are.
Okay. Sir, they want to know about the renewable energy. How is this going to help in the automobile industry?
So there is a lot of work that is happening on alternate fuels already. So which
Yeah.
is why I was also a little skeptic about talking about electric vehicles 20 years down the line because I'm not sure if electricity itself will make it. I mean, electricity will be there, but it is not the way we understand electricity today with all the fossil fuels, coal, etc. Uh, Renewable energy surely has got a lot of focus now, and solar, I think, is one of the areas which is picking up very well. But there is a whole host of, hydrogen fuel cells, water-based some solutions, nitrogen-based something. There are different experiments happening. It's very early to say what will happen. Definitely, solar looks very promising, and there are people who are experimenting with solar cells, which can be done as a paint. So you paint the rooftop of a car with that kind of a paint, and it becomes a uh, solar cell. So some of those experiments are happening, and I'm pretty sure that renewable energy per se is going to remain as a very, very forceful uh, driver in terms of whatever research, development, and manufacturing will happen.
Sir, again, a question on entrepreneurship. Do you foresee entrepreneurial opportunities for today's students in e-mobility, in charging stations or battery swapping stations? Like, can they have some of their companies in India anytime soon, or when, or is it already happening?
So I think it is already happening, and if you look at companies who are making the charging stations, even there you have a lot of startups.
No,
So
sir.
I personally know two, three startups who are offering their charging stations on a franchise mode for people to set up. So smart metering, people are tying up with electric supply corporations to do the metering for the charging stations. There is an informal way of battery swapping process which is already happening, especially with the three-wheeler auto rickshaw market, the e-rickshaw markets, I would say, uh, that I know of in Delhi itself. And yeah, I think these are some of the very low-hanging fruits where entrepreneurship will happen. And you may not necessarily need a lot of technical skills. You could be a commerce graduate and do this actually. So you don't really need to do it. I think if you are getting trained technically, you can do much more. You can actually look at, uh, today's charging stations. If you look at, they are of the size of an almirah. Uh, can some of you think of that being the size of a landline telephone instrument to start with, if not a smartphone size? So I think that is some of the work that some of you can start thinking about.
So lastly, current requirement of engineers in automobile sector, that is in numbers. Like, what is the
What are the
current
kind of
requirement?
numbers?
Yes, like how can you say that?
So I would say that there's approximately out of the 32 million, approximately about 10 million jobs are technical jobs, I would say. And even if we don't grow as an industry, there will be about, on a very conservative estimate, there will be about 10% replacements. So I would say about a million people every year. So about 10 lakh people, technical people required every year in various organizations.
Our students are having really good bright future. That is what I could say. Being a skilled university and getting skilled
Yeah.
starting from first year itself. So
You must know one thing very well. That's all to start with, and then you can keep building on it. But you cannot be a generalist in today's context. That, oh, I have this degree from Symbiosis, and therefore you should hire me. Nobody
no,
will hire you from that perspective. People will hire you because, I did this particular project, and this is how it worked.
that's true. That's totally true, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Your thoughts have really enlightened our minds and have shown us a new paths. Uh,
Thank you.
it Now, on behalf of SSPU and from School of Automobile Department, I express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Arindam Leri sir, our expert guest, for sparing this valuable time from his busy schedule to enhance our knowledge. Today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely be going to encourage us in our future events. Special mention to our respected director, sir, Dr. Charudatta Patak, for being the catalyst that stimulated us to do our best and standing as pillars of strength. I also extend thanks to all the faculty members for their enormous cooperation. Lastly, let me thank all my engineers, or I should say, my would be industry ready engineers, my dear students, to be disciplined and honored. Our school students are really good at academics and also in extracurricular activities. So we really value your time, students, and the every moment that you spend in the university is really valued. So thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, all of you, for giving your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.